Alright guys, so I know the last video was kind of long, but I wanted to get the HTML and the base styling out of the way so we can focus on the menu. So let's head over to our version, which looks like this. So we just have the checkbox up here, and the checkbox has a class of toggler, if you remember. So we have class of toggler. Menu wrap is going to cover, it's going to surround everything, okay, including the overlay. So menu wrap surrounds all of this, everything. So let's start with that. So we're going to go to menu CSS and let's add class menu dash wrap. And we're going to set that to position fixed. So when we have our overlay open, and we scroll down, we don't want this to scroll down. Like, we don't want the menu to just go out of focus, or out of the viewport. We want it to stay where it is. So we want to position it fixed at top 0, left 0. Okay, so basically its natural position. We want it to stay there, and we want to give it a Z index of 1 so that it's always on top. We want the menu to be visible, so we want it to be on top of any other content. All right, so if I save that, now you can see that it's fixed and that white area is now gone because it's just sitting on top of anything else that we have on the page. Now let me try and explain what's going to happen. We need to style the checkbox itself. Now the checkbox is going to sit on top of the actual Hamburger class, this right here. We want it to sit on top of it, however we want it to be invisible, so we want to set the opacity to 0. And the reason that we need the checkbox is just for its state, because we can set it to checked and we can actually grab onto that within the style and we can create our overlay when it's checked, and when it's unchecked we can bring it out. So that the checkbox is just for functionality. The Hamburger class is what we're going to use to create the actual square, and then the inner div we'll be using to create the lines inside. Okay, hopefully that makes sense, and close that up. So let's grab the menu wrap and then the toggler, which is the actual checkbox input, and we need to position it correctly. So we're going to say position absolute, and we want to set it to the top corner, so top 0, left 0, and we're going to set let's see, we're going to set the Z index to 2 because we always want it to be on top. Okay, it's going to be invisible, we won't see it, but it will still be there and we'll still be able to check it. And we're going to set the cursor to pointer so that when we hover over it we have a pointer. And let's set the width to, let's say, 50 pixels, and height we'll do 50 pixels. And if I save that, you can see now it's positioned absolute right in the corner. However, we don't want it to show, so we're going to say opacity, and let's set that to 0. Okay, so now it's not there, but it is there. All right, and you can see I'm actually checking it right now. When I hover over it, the cursor goes over it, and it's going to be 50 pixels around. All right. Now the Hamburger class, we're gonna grab onto that next. So let's say Hamburger, and we're going to position it right in the same spot. So absolute, top 0, left 0, and we're going to set this Z index to 1. Okay, we want it to be under the checkbox. And we're also going to set a width and height. We're going to do 60 pixels. So height, and you can mess with the sizes if you want. I mean, you don't have to follow the exact parameters that I am, but whoops. Let's see, we got width, height. Let's set padding to 1 rem, and then the background I'm going to set to the primary color. Now I just want to show you real quick, if I do like background black and save, we get our little square here. And we can actually check it. I'm clicking and it's checking that input. Okay, but we're seeing the Hamburger class here. Now I'm setting it to the primary color, so var dash dash primary. And we're not going to get the little drop down in VS Code because the variables are not set in this file. They're set in the style file. So let's say primary color, and if I save, you'll see that it has the primary color and it's see-through. It's translucent because of the primary color is an RGBA, and the opacity is 0.75, so that's what we're seeing here. I mean, if you don't want it, if you want to set it to a different color, or you don't want it to be translucent, then of course you can change the background to whatever you want. Now I'm also I want to display this as a flex, because the div inside is going to take care of the lines. I want to center everything, so I'm going to display flexed and then align the items to the center. And let's also justify the content to the center, and we should be good. All right, so that's basically the hamburger, the outside wrapper of the hamburger. Now we want to do the lines, okay? And remember, there's a div inside of the hamburger div. So what we want to do is set this to be a line, and then we're going to use before and after to insert the top and bottom lines, okay, if that makes sense. So let's go back to menu CSS, and I'll actually put a comment here. Let's say hamburger line, just so you know what does what, because I know a lot of times when we look at complicated CSS, you don't know, what is actually doing what. So I want to try to explain that as we go along. So we're going to take the menu wrap, and we want the hamburger class, and then we want the immediate div, and we're going to set it to position relative, okay, and then we're going to set flex to none and set the width to 100%. Okay, now the height I'm going to set to 2 pixels, because remember, we're creating the line here, we're creating the middle line of the hamburger menu. So I'm going to give it a background of white. I want it to be white, and let's say display flex, and we want to set align items to center and justify content to center. So let's save that, and you can see we get our middle line. Okay, now obviously we need 2 more. We need one above it, or I should say before it and after it. So we're going to use the before and after pseudo selectors. So let's say hamburger lines, we'll say top and bottom lines. So we're going to take menu wrap hamburger, and let's say we want the div that we want to do before. So we want to use the before pseudo selector, and we're going to do the same exact styling for after. So I'm going to copy this, and then we're going to do after. And it might turn, if you're using VS Code, it might turn into double colon. Basically does the same thing. A single colon is just a shortcut for that. So since we're using before and after, we need to put in content, but we're not actually inserting content. And let's set this to position absolute, okay, and it's absolute to the relative div, the actual div. All right, and then let's set the z-index to 1, and let's say top, I'm going to say negative 10 pixels, so I'm going to move it up 10 pixels. And we want to set the width to 100%, just like the standard div up here. And then we're going to set the height to the same thing, so 2 pixels. And for background, I'm just going to say inherit, which will be white. It's going to inherit this white here. So if I save that, you'll see that now we have a line up above. Now, what's happening is both the before and after, it's basically creating both lines, the before and after. However, they're in the same exact spot. We just said top negative 10 pixels. So what I want to do now is just take the after one, okay, because this should all be the same for both. However, the after, we just want to position it below, so I'm simply going to take the top value and I'm going to set it to 10 pixels and save, and now that brings it down 10 pixels. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. And now we have our hamburger menu. All right, so just to reiterate what we've done here, because I know that it might be a little confusing, we set the menu wrap to be position fixed and start at the top and the top left corner. So menu wrap covers everything, even the entire overlay here. And then the toggler is the checkbox, which we positioned it. We set a width and height, and then we basically made it disappear. It's still there. You can see we can still check it. So right now I'm actually checking it. If I click anywhere on this, it's checking it. But it is opacity 0. In fact, if I change this back to 1 and we save, you can see that it's still there. All right, we're going to set that back to 0. And then the Hamburger class is what takes care of this actual box right here, okay, which we have set to primary color. You kind of can't, I mean, it's very hard to see because it's translucent, and it's almost the same color as the background, but it is there. And then the inner div we took and we basically created a line. So we set width to 100%, so it goes all the way across, aside from the padding, and the height to 2 pixels, so the line is 2 pixels. Then we took the before and after pseudo selectors and we created 2 more lines for those. Set it to be up here at the top, -10 pixels, and then we took just the after and we changed top to 10 pixels so that it got pushed down. Okay, so that's what's going on here, and hopefully that makes sense. So I think that's going to be it for this video. In the next one, I want to start to take care of the rotation. When we click on this, I want to transform it and use rotate so that we can actually morph it into an X. Okay, so we're going to do that in the next video.